Section 28, Unlicensed Assistants, Introduction, the most expensive helper in real estate. Throughout this course, we have discussed agency relationships, fiduciary duties, dual agency, buyer representation, and disclosure obligations. One of the biggest risks facing brokers today does not always involve contracts, disclosures, or negotiations. Sometimes the risk comes from well-meaning assistants who unknowingly cross the line into activities requiring a real estate license. Every successful real estate business relies on support staff. Administrative assistants, transaction coordinators, marketing assistants, and office personnel help keep transactions moving efficiently. However, Arizona law places core limits on what unlicensed assistants may and may not do. The problem is that many agents become comfortable with their assistants and slowly begin delegating tasks that require a real estate license. What starts as answering phones and scheduling appointments can quickly turn into discussing properties, attending inspections, negotiating repairs, or answering buyer questions. When that happens, both the assistant and the broker may face serious consequences. What is an unlicensed assistant? An unlicensed assistant is an individual who works for a licensed real estate broker or salesperson, but does not hold a real estate license and is not performing activities that require a license. Arizona law defines compensation broadly. It includes salaries, commissions, fees, money, or any other valuable consideration provided for services. Because of this broad definition, an unlicensed assistant cannot be compensated based upon commissions, closed transactions, or successful sales. Their compensation must not depend on whether a property closes escrow. This rule exists because commission-based compensation often indicates participation in licensed activities. Why Arizona takes this seriously? Arizona takes unlicensed activity very seriously. Under A.R.S, Section 32-2165, a person who acts as a broker or salesperson without a license may be guilty of a felony offense. Depending on the circumstances, violations can result in Class 5 or Class 6 felony charges. Many agents are surprised by this. They assume the consequences are merely administrative. In reality, unlicensed activity can have criminal consequences in addition to disciplinary action against the broker and licensee. What unlicensed assistants can do? The good news is that unlicensed assistants can perform many valuable tasks. They may answer phones, file documents, copy records, scan paperwork, schedule appointments, prepare marketing materials approved by the broker, deliver documents, coordinate inspections, confirm appointments, and perform a variety of administrative duties. They may also use technology to complete tasks assigned by the licensee, provided those tasks do not require a real estate license. Think of an unlicensed assistant as helping manage the business rather than helping negotiate the transaction. The moment the activity begins involving advice, opinions, negotiations, or real estate expertise, the assistant is approaching dangerous territory. Real-world example, the helpful assistant. Imagine an assistant answers the office phone. A prospective buyer asks, "What do you think the seller will take for the property?" The assistant wants to be helpful and responds, "I think they're pretty motivated. They would probably take less." At that moment, the assistant has crossed the line. Providing opinions regarding value, negotiating positions, or transaction terms requires a real estate license. Good intentions do not create authority. Only licensed individuals may perform licensed activities. What unlicensed assistants cannot do, Arizona law and ADRE policy clearly identify activities that unlicensed assistants cannot perform. They cannot negotiate contracts. They cannot discuss terms and conditions of a sale. They cannot provide pricing advice. They cannot give opinions of value. They cannot assist consumers with contract preparation. They cannot conduct walkthrough inspections. They cannot perform tenant vacate inspections. They cannot negotiate repair requests or BINSRs. They cannot procure prospects in a manner designed to result in a real estate transaction. These activities require professional judgment and therefore require a real estate license. The inspection and BINSR problem, one of the most common violations, occurs when an assistant becomes heavily involved in inspections. The legal hotline discussed a situation where an assistant attended inspections, participated in final walkthroughs, drafted BINSRs, and negotiated repairs with the other party. The assistant was not licensed. The answer was clear. These activities constitute the practice of real estate and require a license. The assistant was performing tasks specifically identified by ADRE as prohibited activities for unlicensed individuals. Many brokers discover these violations only after a complaint is filed. By then, it may be too late. Open houses create additional risks. Open houses often create confusion regarding what assistants may do. An unlicensed assistant may assist at an open house when a licensee is present. However, the assistant may not independently host or conduct the open house. Why? Because visitors ask questions. They ask about pricing. They ask about financing. They ask about disclosures. They ask about the neighborhood. Answering those questions requires licensed activity. For that reason, ADRE prohibits unlicensed assistants from hosting open houses without a licensed agent present. Model homes are treated the same way. A common question involves model homes in new home subdivisions. Can an unlicensed assistant unlock model homes and allow visitors to walk through? The answer is no. ADRE has determined that opening model homes creates the same concerns as hosting an open house. Prospective buyers naturally ask questions about the property, and the assistant is prohibited from providing those answers. Therefore, unlicensed assistants should not independently open model homes for prospective buyers. When can an assistant unlock a property? Interestingly, there is one situation where an unlicensed assistant may unlock a property. If a licensee is running late for a scheduled showing, the assistant may unlock the property so the licensee can show the home upon arrival. However, the assistant cannot discuss the property, answer questions, provide opinions, or engage in any licensed activity while waiting for the licensee. The distinction is simple. Unlocking the door is allowed. Selling the house is not. Advertising requires special disclosure. Many teams use assistants in social media videos, marketing campaigns, and promotional materials. When this occurs, Arizona requires transparency. ADRE Substantive Policy Statement 2017.01 states that when an unlicensed assistant appears in advertising or marketing, the assistant must be clearly identified as unlicensed. Real-world example, the social media video. A real estate team hosts an open house. The team's assistant records a video and posts it online saying, "Come visit our open house this weekend." The assistant never identifies themselves as unlicensed. According to ADRE guidance, this is a problem. The assistant should clearly disclose their unlicensed status whenever they are included in advertising or marketing materials. Agency and supervision go hand in hand. One of the most important lessons from this section is that responsibility ultimately rests with the broker. Brokers are responsible for establishing policies and procedures regarding the use of unlicensed assistants. Agents should never assume an assistant understands the limits of their role. Training matters. Supervision matters. Documentation matters. The best brokers regularly review assistant responsibilities and ensure everyone understands where the line exists between administrative support and licensed activity. The big lesson: unlicensed assistants play an important role in the real estate industry, but they must stay within clearly defined boundaries. They can assist with administrative tasks. They can help organize transactions. They can support licensed professionals. They cannot negotiate, advise, discuss transaction terms, host open houses alone, conduct inspections, draft BINSERs, or perform activities requiring professional real estate judgment. The safest rule is simple. If the task requires real estate expertise, advice, negotiation, or representation, it should be performed by a licensed individual. As we have learned throughout this course, agency law is designed to protect consumers. Proper supervision of unlicensed assistants helps protect the public, the brokerage, and the licensees who rely on them every day. Online discussion questions. Question 1. Why can't an unlicensed assistant discuss pricing, negotiations, or property terms with consumers? Answer. Because providing advice, negotiating terms, and discussing transaction details are licensed activities that require a real estate license. Question 2. Why does Arizona require unlicensed assistants to identify themselves as unlicensed in advertising? Answer. To prevent consumers from mistakenly believing the individual is licensed and authorized to provide real estate services. Question 3. What is the difference between unlocking a property and showing a property? Answer. Unlocking a property for a licensee is permitted under limited circumstances, but discussing the property, answering questions, or conducting a showing requires a real estate license.